I never should keep me up past my bedtime.
You can't go to sleep yet, Pop. I've got a super devious and nasty plan. We'll divide and conquer.
You mean set mushroom against mushroom? It'll never happen.
I can make it happen.
My little Koopalings, tell Papa your plan. In the morning.
Attention, comrades. Take your places for the 2-minute haste.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrow. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come.
All right, it's been a while since I've just sat down and talked into the microphone, but it's probably a good time to do that. And first, I wanted to just make a couple more channel-related announcements, I suppose. I've been meaning to mention that I do have a BitChute channel up that I started earlier this year. I hadn't even gone there in months, so it's not something I've been really using yet. I just kind of started it, and I tried to set it up so that it would automatically, upload all my videos from here, and it seems like a few of them have, randomly, and so don't ask me why some have and some haven't, but I'll have to figure that out more, if I start having to use that in the future more. So we'll see there. But I did go ahead and upload the full-length version, quote-unquote, of this project, which I recently finished, titled Insanitized. And I chose to release it on YouTube here as a playlist. So it's 10 separate chapters, if you will, 10 separate videos. So I apologize if that created a little bit more confusion than it should have, because, I mean, I know some people who didn't get any notifications at all for any of the 10 videos, and some people just got a lot of them. And unfortunately, you can't, I didn't even realize until just now that you can actually post something which automatically puts somebody in the playlist, so it'll just automatically play. But I do have it all set up like that in my list of playlists on this channel. And so there was a number of reasons for that, just both sort of in the process of making it, but also some very sort of more pragmatic reasons in terms of just the pitfalls of dealing with YouTube. And having had a full-length uploaded, the previous one when Ethereal was up for like a year, and then because of 30 seconds of clip that somebody finally decided wasn't supposed to be in there, the whole thing got taken down and you're just kind of starting over, and that was frustrating. So that was sort of part of the reason, but it just kind of fit with the whole theme of it being less of a traditional attempt at a documentary or, long-playing YouTube video, but something that could be broken up, and the individual songs / topics can, they stand alone and then they work as a complete whole, kind of like, a concept album, or if you will, for those of you old enough to remember what that even was. So there's that, and I only mention that because, I suppose that's kind of a good segue into the broader topic of this video, in terms of how, obviously, everything is in a state of flux right now. And so, that's not just my channel or my, situation in life, but everyone, everyone in the world is in a crazy state of flux, and there is so much going on. And to do one of these kinds of videos where you're speaking in a more current events, present day kind of moment, things are changing so fast that, it's hard to know when to actually stop and talk about it, because by the time you actually upload something, it could be completely, feel like yesterday's news, quote unquote. But of course, I do think that that's very helpful to do at times, to stop and kind of speak to a broader general truths and issues, what are really eternal matters, but through the lens of, this present moment right now, which is a pretty crazy one for sure. I mean, this whole year has been pretty amazing in so many ways. But at the same time, God has been showing me so much and revealing himself to me so much more, and seeing just how through so much that he has brought me through, to really be able to stop and be reminded that if it wasn't for the grace of God, I probably wouldn't even be here, still alive. And just really learning, despite all this stuff kind of manifesting in ways that are both long time coming and have been seen from far off, and then other things that kind of just catch you off guard still. I think most of us can relate to that, where it's this weird combination of things you've perhaps been trying to tell people about for years, and other things that you still couldn't believe would be that successful. You still didn't think the mass population was prepared to just go along with that quickly. So, and of course, that is the whole kind of that kind of describes a lot of what's going on in terms of what are people looking to and turning to in the midst of all this. And the most basic and obvious level of that is the whole right-left paradigm, kind of false dichotomy of politics and this election. And for probably a month now, since before the election, I've been thinking about this whole topic and all these narratives, right? Because that's ultimately, I know for myself, and I'm sure most of you, when you do watch anything that is from the mainstream news, you're not watching because you're expecting to hear a shred of truth anywhere. It's just more to kind of pop in and listen to, what the different narratives, how they're progressing. It's just all narratives, and that's really all you're listening for and kind of watching. And obviously there's two very polarized narratives that have been brewing for so many years, and that have been prepared and stirred and patiently assembled to get to this point to where now they're all being kind of merged together. And so even in the several weeks leading up to the selection process, it really did start becoming pretty transparently obvious what these narratives were all about in terms of this whole Civil War kind of concept. And this is now just in headlines and in articles and Facebook and everything. This is the whole question, if you will. Like, what is going to happen? And I think there was a period there where, wondering if it was just going to all kick off right on, election night and riots and all this stuff. And the National Guard was being brought into, I don't know how many places, but it was here in Oregon. And, you could see them all ramping up for more chaos because we haven't had enough. But of course, in the couple weeks after, it's become quite clear that this is a long play thing, just like everything else, just like the lockdowns, just like all the other propaganda. It's not just a quick overnight thing. Everything is just a long, drawn out, ever weirder sort of soap opera. It's like watching some kind of bizarre, the most bizarre reality show you've ever seen, written by AI typewriting monkeys or something. So even though I don't really need to explain this to anyone, I'm sure, but to where now the media has all called it for Biden, and Trump is proceeding with all of his lawsuits, with Giuliani kind of taking over more and more. And, as I record this, the narrative seems to be showing that that's just kind of a pipe dream and some sort of Hail Mary, but because he's just such an egomaniac, blah, blah, blah. And so nobody's really taking it even seriously in the media, of course, and so as far as the narrative appears, to be progressing in the mainstream media, for whatever that's worth, yeah, it's looking like this impossibility. So, from my perspective now, even though it could easily change at any moment, it does seem kind of intriguing to think that might be like the real long-term play with this whole narrative, in terms of letting everyone who's jumping up and down and excited because Biden's won and the evil dictator Trump is going to be out in a few months, and let them just become so emotionally confident and smug in that, to where then if there was a flip around in the courts that nobody even thought was serious, and it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and suddenly the courts do what the media and everyone on the quote-unquote left, thinks is unthinkable, then yeah, things could get really genuinely fractured in terms of the whole edifice coming down, coming apart, and outside intervention eventually being called to step in, UN intervention or whatever. But and I don't know, that's just kind of where it seems possibly the most concerning scenario, if it really just is designed to bring it all to the point of, literally the military-industrial complex itself being divided up in loyalties and all that. And in the last few days, yes, obviously we have had, chiefs of staff at the Pentagon being replaced with people loyal to Trump. So again, this is all narratives, right? It's not really about, I probably can't stress that enough times in enough ways. All we're talking about really is narratives. We're not really talking about real things. And if you're looking at it in any other way, then I would suggest that you are still stuck in a false dichotomy. But no matter what happens, what I do think is just undeniable, somewhat inevitable, sooner or later, is that, these narratives are being fostered to divide and conquer, obviously. And that in itself is nothing super profound or rare to hear, especially in the alternative media sphere. But at the same time, you can't stop there and think that once you understand that the whole right-left paradigm is a false paradigm and a false choice, Coke versus Pepsi. It's the same high fructose corn syrup in the end. But then at the same time, more often than not, what people do is turn around and then just get caught in the same sort of thing. It's just now us versus the elites, or us versus the globalists, or us versus the evil satanic pedophiles, and so on and so forth. And not to say that all those are not very real and very serious business, but that's why it makes the truth of the gospel just even that much more audacious and unique from anything else that is out there in terms of spiritual truth claims and narratives, a foundation from which understanding everything else going on in the world can really be achieved in a lasting and meaningful and coherent way. And not just that, but in a comforting way, in peace. And again, like I've been saying, this year has just been, it has been surreal on so many levels. Not just the ones that just kind of make you feel like you're in the Twilight Zone all the time, or name whatever dystopian movie you want to name, or whatever. It's like the movie They Live. It's like it's everything, and it is really scary. But at the same time, the more real it gets, the more I see God being able to use it just in other people who maybe were not wanting to look at things that have been progressing in the world, and it is waking a lot of people up or shocking them up, and to where you do start asking questions and start trying to figure out what the heck's really going on. And so instead of getting caught in all these false red-blue pill humanistic dichotomies, which a lot of people recognize when they start questioning all this, and then they wind up embracing monism and New Age concepts whereby you reject duality altogether, even though that's not even possible to do. But they think they do. But I understand why, with all the Hegelian nonsense that is going on the macro level and everything beneath, these false dichotomies, these false choices, the illusion of choice. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill? I mean, how appropriate is that with everything going on with the rush to get the vaccines, and it's a big competition, and it's like, which color poison do you want? You just got to make sure you pick the right one, and so on. And for some people, those kinds of false choices are very obvious, but for others, it's definitely not. And so with all of these things going on, all these narratives just colliding and clamoring for attention, at the same time, I feel like, on the other hand, the whole Civil War narrative that's being cooked up and fomented and driven to where it feels like just kind of every day we're all sort of holding our breath, just waiting for, another shoe to drop or another propaganda bomb to explode. And as I say that, as of, I think it was yesterday, so here in Oregon, for the next 2 weeks, they've essentially criminalized gatherings of more than 6 people from 2 different households. So, yeah, they waited right till Thanksgiving to do the new round of bringing everyone back under, essentially house arrest, in a manner which, so you could either face, fees or jail time if you break this order, apparently. Whereas, in the previous time where it was only supposed to be for 2 weeks, it was just recommendations and there was no enforcement or anything. But now they have officially said that you could be fined or jailed if you do not comply, and on Thanksgiving, no less. So just hearing people around here still talking like, oh yeah, it's only going to be for a couple weeks, and even after everything that we went through, March, April, May, June, and just weeks turning into months and months turning into a year, and you've just kind of been sitting around. In a lot of ways, I feel like I've just been trying to kind of let some of that kind of sink in to friends and family who don't want to question mainstream narratives. Like, how long does it have to drag on before you start to kind of wonder if it's not all on the up and up, you know what I mean? So here we are at Thanksgiving, and everyone's, I guess, just gonna throw their hands up and keep pretending like the media hasn't just lied to you at every step of the way. So yeah, there's plenty to be discouraged about if you let it, or if you just even see all these things for what they are. And so really, the more I think about this whole Civil War, false dichotomy, red versus blue, divide and conquer kind of narrative, or it's a satanic strategy. It's a spiritual strategy that the Bible actually speaks at length about. In terms of a house divided against itself cannot stand. And we are called so many times as brothers and sisters in Christ to be unified in love and united in faith and truth and in practice. And as things have just continued to progress, and we're just all flexing and rolling and trying to kind of just stay calm and seek his peace and seek his guidance, daily, and just lean on him more and more. I pray that's what you're doing, because if you're not, you are not going to have the strength. But for the body of Christ, I can see in so many ways how the events of this year, as revolting and heinous and despicable and insane as it all has been already and will no doubt continue to be. I can see how, at the same time, God really can and is using it and is going to increasingly use all these things to refine all of us and refine his bride and teach us how to be united in love for one another, even as the rest of the world grows colder and colder and angrier and more riled up and lacking in love, even while, sure, whether in the truth community or mainstream media land, everyone's most people think that they're all about love, that they're really operating in love. Even Bill Gates has convinced himself that he's, doing all he's doing out of his love for humanity. I mean, what a perfect example to show how twisted an idolatrous and conceited heart can become. But in the end, he's just another fallen person being used as a tool by the real enemy, the real powers that should not be, the powers that do not be, the powers that are not the powers, the powers that are only minor powers, the powers that have only been allowed for a short time to involve themselves in the affairs of man, in this flow of action that we call history, human history. But there's so much about all this that I think gives us so many reasons to just worship God and thank him and see the wisdom, see his amazing, profound, divine, supernatural, sovereign wisdom in all of it, just the whole progression of everything up till now, that we're seeing things that all the generations before us would have thought were, beyond science fiction, beyond possible. But we've also been living in a chapter of history where the church has effectively outsourced so much of what Scripture tells us that we are supposed to do and learn to live together as being the body of Christ. And I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense yet, but the more we see all these things in terms of, the brick and mortar churches, I don't even know. I haven't even really looked into kind of what the status on that is. It depends on where you are, I guess, and I feel like all of that sort of plays into this whole red state, blue state narrative, right? Because you got mass migrations and you got places that are stricter on the lockdowns or not. But again, those are all sort of, to me, the longer it goes on, the more that just looks like deflectionary kind of just narratives, because sooner or later they all kind of come in line, just like with everything else, all the other controversial legislation and right-left issues that have come down the pipe over the past decades, from abortion to gay rights and transgender and all this. And now, of course, it's all melding with this more and more extreme leftism, quote unquote, that obviously is very, very wicked and evil. So it's not that there aren't things that you can point out to being part of one ideology versus the other that are absolutely 100% evil. But just looking at it from that perspective kind of is pretty sobering when you think about how far in the rear view mirror so many of those super controversial things that people were protesting and rallying around and trying to stop, trying to draw a line in the sand, from guys like Francis Schaeffer, in the 80s, right before he passed, started getting all political and getting into weird relationships with the White House and stuff like that I still can't quite understand. But yeah, just trying to wrestle with the issue of whether it's civic disobedience or the government and faith, and just at the very least wanting to go there and talk about it. Whereas even as far back as the 60s, the mainstream church has just kind of wanted to stick its head in the sand and pretend, and more or less kind of go with the Disneyland version of politics and current events and science and you name it. And all those things are really being tested, put out there, and for as long as we have this season where we're able to share things on the internet and research things and participate in the ways we've been, even though it's getting harder and harder all the time. And so that's the state of flux, is that on the one hand I feel more compelled than ever to take as many opportunities as I still have left to say things that actually have eternal consequence and are not just something that might be interesting or valid to discuss, but ultimately not as pertinent. There's definitely a sense of urgency I will say, I guess is a good word for it. A sense of urgency to everything, but also a sense of peace, and just learning to just trust God even with that. I think, honestly, for the last 2 or 3 years, I think I've already kind of been more and more approaching this whole channel thing like, I could wake up any morning and it could just be gone. It could just be taken down with no explanation, just like everybody else, and that is now happening. People being deplatformed and stuff, with obviously way more experience and followers and stuff. So I think that's kind of where we're all at. We don't know, and so it really is just a kind of a daily process of just waking up and saying, if it's still there, it's still there, and then what can I do? What should I say? And sometimes that means having to kind of wait and think about it, I guess. So I really appreciate all your patience with that, and if I take a few weeks to put out a video or whatever, but I'm definitely going to keep going and keep striving ahead for as long as God allows me to do so. So I wanted to communicate that as well. I appreciate all your support, just through emails, through prayer, through comments, through giving if you feel led to do that. And I still feel loath to even mention that, but at the same time, I also feel like, as all this stuff is going on, I've personally also been more appreciative and thankful myself just for the other people who are still out there in the alternative media in whatever form and format that they're, trying to keep going on. And so, support your alternative media, support your ministries that God leads you to support. And so I am really thankful for those of you who've, sort of partnered with me in the midst of all my irregularities and lack of format, I guess. But, overall, I'm still just kind of praying, and seeking God in terms of, what he might call me to do in the next chapter, the next season, whether that season is just chaos, chaotic dark winter nightmare scenarios, or just more, trucking along here with just the nightmare narrative soup. I don't know. I'm just, whatever comes, I'm just praying that he just gives me kind of the strength to do whatever I'm doing for the glory of him, and not ourselves, and not all the little kingdoms and brands and things that we've built up. It's the irony, right? I mean, going back to just being the body of Christ in the last days, I guess, is what we're talking about. Where I really do feel convicted that it's more like every day, it's just God is just impressing upon me, like how we have to learn to get over all our hang-ups and our little categorization, our little, whether it's denominational, quibbles or doctrinal disputes and translations. And not to say that those things aren't very important and valid and necessary topics and things, and I'm not downplaying it all, but I mean, the time for the petty stuff is really done. I mean, where it's like, literally, if you were to meet in your house and have a Bible study right now with more than 6 people, supposedly you could get fined or jailed if you dare do such a thing. And how exactly is that going to be enforced? They're not really elaborating on that, but it does seem to kind of tie into some things we've all been talking about in terms of contact tracing and the digital panopticon garbage. Yeah, so again, it's like, how real does it have to get before we start really getting real with ourselves and getting real with God and getting real with the fact that it is so convicting. I can't even get over it. And just when you're processing, like, just something not even at the stage of, the trumpets of Revelation kind of a thing, but just the planned takedown of, the old paradigm to bring in the new paradigm, the new normal, the great reset. And speaking of narratives, it's just out there. It's just out there like a slogan, like an advertising slogan. This is, when you think about all this from like a marketing perspective and Edward Bernays and all that stuff, it's like, that's what everything kind of reduces down to, is marketing slogans and ad. It's just one ad campaign on top of another that all feed off of each other and feed on each other, and it's just crazy. But How bizarre is it that essentially now the mainstream narratives, the competing narratives, the right, left, red, blue narratives are both quote-unquote conspiracy theories about the other one. I mean, never did I honestly expect to be sitting here kind of looking at that in the way this is really shaping up to be, where so either to buy into one side or the other, either Trump's trying to, create a coup and take over with his, with all of his yes men, and perhaps all the, that's just going to ignite the whole QAnon narrative into some crazy weaponized, It's not good. I don't even like thinking about that. But then, of course, on the Trump support side, it's the coup of Biden and the Democrats and the rigged election Dominion machines, and so it's like red and blue conspiracy theories, I guess, now, and yet you're still made fun of for being a conspiracy theorist, so it's like perfect. It's what a perfect development for 2020. But so for us to be grounded, if we are really truly grounded in faith, that the Bible is true, historically, eternally, the Word of God given to man, declaring the truth of his Son, who came in the flesh, died on the cross, rose on the third day. If these are the creeds and the doctrines on which your eternal hope is based, then the time for quibbling over how you pronounce Jesus' name, or how you observe the Sabbath, or what translation of the Bible is, the only one that English-speaking people should use, or on and on and on. Like when you stop and think about the serious reality of persecution and totalitarian medical martial law, fascist one world everything, and the prospect of maybe sitting in a prison cell, or losing your business, or losing your home, or losing your job, or whatever form the ugliness takes as the whole vaccine rollout gets underway next year. The Great Reset. Conveniently timed. All this so conveniently timed, with January being when the inauguration is supposed to happen, and if there was some sort of increased crisis or increased, national emergency, or whatever happens in the Supreme Court, there's so many things that January could come and it's all still quote-unquote undecided or up in the air, or one side's trying to, and then the military and all this, it could just get really insane. But on top of that, the vaccine rollout, and last I saw, Moderna, the one that claims to change your DNA, but it's not trying to change your DNA, but that's how it also helps you fight coronavirus better, right? So it's just doublespeak nonsense, like, all the time. But the Great Reset, being the theme of, the Davos Forum, which is now moved to, I think, May of next year, as opposed to its normal time, I think in January or February. And here, even on this Australian news channel, Sky News Australia, talking about it at length. Like, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's just all out there for you to read. They've just laid it out.
So when these four extremely powerful and influential bodies line up to tell us what they are planning for our economic future, it's worth maybe just paying a little attention. The World Economic Forum meets every January in Davos. You will have heard of the expression Davos man, Jackie. It refers to all the zillionaires and pop stars and popes and princes and politicians who meet every year to map out our futures. I'm sure you've heard of Bono, Jackie. Well, next year's World Economic Forum at Davos has been pushed back to May in Lucerne, presumably because of COVID. But, and here's where you really need to pay attention, Jackie, this year's Davos is very, very different to all the previous ones. The World Economic Forum, along with the United Nations, along with the International Monetary Fund, and along with any number of prominent globalist organizations and powerful individuals, including Prince Charles, together have jointly promised that the 2021 World Economic Forum will be used to introduce, via a vast network of connected big tech corporations, online activist movements and compliant local and national governments something they call the Great Reset. This isn't some Sky After Dark fantasy conspiracy theory, Jackie. It is a global commitment they have made to use the panic and fear generated by the coronavirus as a means to reshape all our economies and laws and move to a new form of capitalism that focuses on net zero emissions, to use all the tools of COVID to tackle climate change. Already, the Great Reset is being widely advertised on posters and in ads across the UK and Europe, and no doubt will be here before too long. "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy" is just one of their marketing slogans.
You know, it's like just like, you know, the shopping mall that's going up in your backyard that you can't do anything about, except it's, you know, every country in the world. You don't even have to touch the conspiracy theory, but it's how ironic. It's like we're out to censor all the conspiracy theorists, but, you know, at the same time, we're promoting all the fake red-blue conspiracies. Yeah, so perfect. And by the way, what is up with this Sky News Australia channel? Maybe some of you Aussies can explain this to me, because this whole year they've been reporting things and saying things that no outlet. The closest thing I guess would be Fox News is something comparable, but they're talking about things that they would never say on Fox News, and you know that's a whole nother narrative thing in itself. But so that kind of makes me wonder, like, what is the play with this outlet or what? Or maybe they're just, you know, it's like real journalism doesn't exist, so that's impossible. But yeah, regardless, whether that's just another shill angle or whatever, everything he's saying is true about Davos and the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum. So again, it's like, the New World Order doesn't just have a website. They have lots of websites, and you know they tell you what they're all about, but it's all conspiracy theory. So, but I mean, that's the whole point, right? At a certain stage, if you're looking into all this and the kind of the paradigms are collapsing and the scales are falling off, and you know you're being red-pilled one way or another and going deeper and deeper, but eventually you have to see that there's no eternal hope being offered from any side. And so in the temporal, historical, socio-political scale of things, all anyone is really arguing about is like, who's going to control the New World Order? Who should be in charge of things? Even if you're arguing for philosophical anarchism or collectivism or whatever sort of non-centralized, decentralized, equitable, non-fascist, I understand why people want to try and find, the answer. What's the answer? What do we do? But you're still trying to find an answer that allows for the rejection of the fallenness of man and the reality of God and the reality of a final judgment, a final reckoning of all things. Essentially, the gospel. You still want, if you want anything else, you're living in a false dichotomy, because the only true duality that encompasses all these things that we're talking about, all these levels, all these layers, is the contrast between the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. Those are the only two sides, really, according to God, according to His Word. Those are the only teams, the only sides, the only kingdoms, and of course, Satan's side has so many fronts and faces and names and labyrinths and blah blah blah. So many false narratives. He's been a liar from the beginning, and he's the father of all lies, the Scripture says. Which that's a lot of narratives, a lot of myths, and a lot of science falsely so-called, and a lot of identity politics. It's been going on since the beginning of time. And there really is nothing new under the sun. And, man, the more you see that going on today, the more bizarre it gets, It's like, it's more horrifying, but so it's not about just making another plea for unity and to be united instead of divided, because the powers that be just want to set us against each other, which is clearly true. But the real enemy, that's of course what the real enemy is trying to do to all of us in dividing us against God. and dividing us against each other, which is the total opposite of what Jesus says. Anyone who says he loves God but hates his brother is a liar. And so, if you love God, you will love your brother. You'll love, love even your enemies, and you'll pray for them and bless them instead of curse them. And but how much more so those of us who are supposedly one in Christ and bought by the precious, sinless blood of Jesus on the cross. If that is your hope, then at some point you need to, I will say this much. I think if you're still in a place where you're allowing bitterness or division or pride or to detract away from the centrality of what Jesus accomplished on our behalf, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. If that isn't what ultimately connects you in fellowship with other people in your quote-unquote resistance to all of these agendas and narratives and lies and propaganda, it's ridiculous. But yeah, we're sitting here. This is the biggest, probably, crime, quote-unquote, in the history of the world. So far. Although maybe that's not true. I don't know. It's certainly the biggest scam. But then again, yeah, tomorrow there could be some deadly pathogen or some deadly something that people just start falling in the streets like they did in China, back in the beginning of the year somehow. And yeah, everyone who questioned the lockdowns is now just made to look even that much more foolish in the eyes of the safety conscious public. So there's plenty of curveballs that the enemy can still throw into the mix to just make it an even crazier stew. But no matter what happens, what we are called to be and what we are called to do does not change. And that's what I think is just what I can't get away from. That we are called to love, to speak the truth, to stand for the truth, and to be unmoved in what we know is true. And what we know God has said, and what we know our hope is in. And at the end of the day, your hope cannot be in God and man. We cannot glorify God and get caught up in what are earthly, carnal, worldly divisions. And so that is especially true for us within the body of Christ. And God, I think, is giving us an opportunity to learn to live as the body of Christ in that way again, where it's not just some sort of consumeristic process of, finding a church with the right doctrinal statements, and you want to make sure it's all safe and legit and, stamp of approval from whatever, seminaries and institutions. And that's not, and I'm not just throwing shade on all that as if God hasn't actually been working in and through those things as well, because he has. And some people do, I think, go to that far of extreme. I was sort of there for a while. But no, just understanding, thank goodness God is not bound by our petty, myopic, little finite perspectives. Because he really does work through even everything that the enemy tries to do. Even all the things that we have done that now, you wish you could have done better or differently, and God uses all of it. He just does in ways that you just can't even comprehend until it just kind of unfolds with all of its glory and goriness, So that is my prayer for us as followers of Jesus in these times, that we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus and on the truth of his word, on the assurance of his promises, the confidence of his prophetic, sovereign knowledge and power, and that we are just led into whatever season, summer, winter, spring. It doesn't matter. If the Lord is with us, who can be against us? That is what I need to hear every day, every minute of every day, and what I will just continue to declare to whoever I can and for as long as I can. And just praise God for being all that he is and more than I can even comprehend, more than I can even, more than we could ever do justice, worshiping him for eternity. And I so look forward to that. But I'm also thrilled to be able to just keep learning to walk in faith and see what he does and see how he moves, in this life, in the midst of all this trepidation and tragedy. God is right there in the midst of all of it. And he's with us in the midst of all of it, and he's with you. If you are not looking to Jesus to be your rock, to be your foundation, to be the vine that nourishes you, that nourishes all of us, if we are not connected to the vine, we wither and die. You know, whether you live in 2020 AD or BC. So I thank you guys once again. I love you. And so I think I'm going to end with a little music again. And if the louder rock music isn't your thing, I'll just say God bless and I love you and I thank you. But if you want to stick around and worship jam a little longer, that's cool too. Because that's what we're going to do. All right, later.
Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him, and show him my salvation.